Hello my friends and welcome back to my channel. This is the final video of my special 4-part series on solo female travel. In case you missed the first 3 videos, I'll post a link on them at the end of this video. To give a quick summary of what the first 3 videos discussed, we talked about some of the reasons why you should give solo travel a chance if you haven't already. In the second part, I talked all about how to plan your solo travel itinerary for the ground up, and in the third part, I shared my top tips and tricks for taking care of all those little things that come with planning a solo trip. This last video is dedicated entirely to talking about safety while traveling solo, especially as a woman. Tip number 1 is to use your common sense and stay aware of your surroundings. This might sound super obvious, but sometimes we can be tempted to let our hair down and embrace vacation mode while traveling. We might want to drink a little bit more than usual, go out to bars and clubs late at night, and take other risks that we might normally avoid. While it's wonderful to relax and enjoy your vacation, always remember to take the same precautions that you would in your own hometown. You don't need to be safety conscious to the point of being paranoid, but try not to drink too much and just have a plan for how you're going to safely get home at the end of the night. And avoid places and situations that feel a little bit off. Definitely also avoid doing anything illegal, even if those things may be legal in your own hometown. Tip number 2 is to follow your gut. There are scammers everywhere who prey specifically on tourists because they know that we can be an easy target. Know that a common tactic for scammers and other predators is to prey on social norms. They will often approach you very politely and make you feel like they are providing such excellent service or attention to make you feel obliged to follow them or buy something. Violating social norms is designed to make us feel uncomfortable. And especially as women, we've usually been trained to not appear rude to another person. Don't ever be afraid to say no if you ever feel uncomfortable or like you're being pressured to do something you don't want to do. You don't need to explain yourself, and always remember that no is a full sentence. Remember that you're probably never going to see this person again in your life, so who cares if they get offended? What really matters is your safety and comfort. Tip number 3 is to do a little research on common scams before you arrive at your destination. This could be scams to sell you fake tickets to famous landmarks, or people trying to sell you their mixtape, or people trying to bring you somewhere to rob you. These common issues are normally pretty well documented, so if you take a little time to familiarize yourself with what to watch out for, you can be prepared to avoid common tourist pitfalls. I'll give you one example from my own travels. I went to Cartagena in Colombia with some friends a few years back, and we spent the afternoon at the beach just in front of our hotel. All afternoon, well-dressed waiters kept bringing us drinks to our chairs on the beach, and when we finally walked up to the hotel bar to pay the bill, we found out that the people who had been bringing us drinks didn't actually work for the hotel. They were dressed very similarly, and all the drinks had come from their cooler hidden a few yards away behind some trees. This was super terrifying when we found out, and while fortunately the drinks weren't drugged or anything, they did end up charging us a ton of money, and we all felt kind of sick later from drinking the beverages. I don't say this to scare you. Just be aware of your surroundings and prepare yourself for what to expect ahead of time. Tip number 4 is about keeping your money safe. I have fortunately never been pickpocketed while traveling, but this is usually my number 1 concern. I always make sure I have the local currency on me, even if that means using the ATM at the airport when I first arrive, which admittedly does usually have a pretty terrible exchange rate. I also make sure to bring a few different cards with me, normally 1 debit card and 2 credit cards. Then I make sure to keep 1 card and a little cash in 3 different places. I'll keep 1 card and some cash in the hotel safe or in a drawer in my room, 1 card and some cash in my normal wallet or purse, and the third set safely inside my bra. This way, if something happens and I do get pickpocketed, I'll be able to continue the trip as planned. One other thing that you can do, if your credit card allows it, is to set up a PIN number for your credit card so that you can use it as a debit card. During a trip to Mexico, I did end up losing my debit card and was able to use my credit card as a backup to withdraw some cash. Some countries also don't really use credit cards and will require a PIN number to make purchases with a credit card. I recommend calling your credit card company to set up a PIN number and to learn about any extra fees or penalties for using it as a debit card, just as a backup. Tip number 5 is about how to safely use transportation while traveling. I've been to some countries where it can be unsafe to take an Uber due to the tense rivalry they have with local taxi drivers. Conversely, though, I've also been to countries where everyone recommended to take an Uber because the taxis are known to overcharge tourists. These are the little details that can save you a ton of heartache and money, and it's usually good to be aware of them. I normally ask the people at the front desk of my hotel what they recommend as far as transportation, because they will have definitely heard this question before. Also, if you're taking public transit, take note of what time the last train or bus leaves so that you don't end up stranded or with an overpriced taxi as your only option. I visited a small town in northern England and ended up missing the last train back to my hotel. There were no Ubers around, so I called a taxi, and halfway through the ride found out that he only took cash and I didn't have enough for the large fee he was demanding. So he actually took me to an ATM in a sketchy area and waited there while I withdrew the money. This was a really terrifying experience, and I'm really lucky that the only thing it cost me was money. So don't repeat my mistake and plan for these situations ahead of time. Tip number 6 is to always be aware of your surroundings. I know this sounds obvious again, but there are a few specific points I want to make about how to stay aware of your surroundings that are super simple, but can end up saving you a ton of heartache. The first is to avoid sleeping on trains or buses. This can be difficult, especially when you're exhausted on a long journey. I've heard so many stories about people taking a quick nap on the train or bus, only to wake up and find that their bags have been stolen. If you absolutely need to go to sleep in this environment, I would advise to store your passport, money, and other important items inside your shirt or jacket, or somewhere else inaccessible, and make sure your bag is situated so that you will notice if somebody's going through it. A few other tips for staying aware of your surroundings is not to wander around with your phone out when looking for directions. This is one I'm definitely still guilty of, but it really does make you look like a target if you're obviously looking for directions with your phone out. Avoid walking around with earbuds or anything else that could distract you, and try not to wear too many flashy accessories or other displays of wealth that might put a target on your back. My 7th and final tip is to send your detailed itinerary and contact information to several people who care about you. Not only will this keep your friends and family up to date on your travels, but this way if something happens, your loved ones will know where you are and where you're staying. You can also set up the Find My Phone feature if you have an iPhone, so that your loved ones can see where your phone is at all times. Another cool feature that Uber has now is to share your trip status. Whenever I get an Uber in a foreign country, or even in my own hometown sometimes, I always share my trip status with my boyfriend, and it shows him exactly where I am on the route and notifies him when I arrive safely. Another tip that I find very useful is to write down the name and address of where you're staying on a piece of paper so that you can show it to a cab driver if needed. This can help you get safely back to your home base, even if there are language barriers. I hope that you found these tips helpful and that you now feel more prepared to stay safe on your solo journey. While you should keep these safety tips in mind, also remember that bad things can happen anywhere, even in your own backyard. You are able to go through life in your hometown with normal, common sense safety precautions, and by and large, these same types of precautions will keep you safe while traveling abroad as well. Just remember to stay safe and also to enjoy your journey. I promise that after you give solo travel a try, you will come back feeling more confident in your ability to tackle anything that life throws at you. I hope you've enjoyed my 4-part series on solo female travel. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel. If you missed any other parts of this series, I'll link to them at the end. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.